Chapter 2. The Secret of the Mogwai. The next evening, Billy's young friend Pete called round. When he saw Gizmo, he was quite astounded. "Wow! What's that?" "It's a Mogwai. My dad bought him for me for Christmas." "He's fantastic. Can I pick him up?" What happened next was so quick that neither boy was able to stop it. Reaching across for Gizmo, Pete knocked over the jar of water that held Billy's paintbrushes. "Look out!" cried Billy. But already the water had splashed onto the Mogwai's fur. Gizmo screamed and arched his back. "Oh, no! You must never get a Mogwai wet. It's one of the rules." As Billy spoke, 5 blisters were forming on Gizmo's back everywhere water had touched. The blisters grew, then split wide open, sending 5 small furry balls skittering across the table. "What on earth?" The 2 friends watched in astonishment as the furry balls began to wriggle and move. "They're turning into Mogwai!" exclaimed Billy. Sure enough, after only a few moments, there were 5 fully grown and squeaking Mogwai. "They're just like Gizmo," said Pete in awed tones. But they weren't. Not quite. For there was a sly look in the eyes of the new Mogwai, and one of them, with a white stripe running the length of his back, had a malicious grin. "I'll call that one Stripe," declared Billy, wide-eyed with astonishment. After Pete had left, Billy put the 5 new Mogwai to bed in a box. Snuggled together like sardines in a tin, they looked harmless enough, and Billy soon fell asleep, listening to the sound of their soft breathing. He was woken by a noise. It was Barney, whining and whimpering. But where on earth was he? Billy made his way downstairs. The sound was coming from the front porch. When he opened the door, he could hardly believe his eyes. There was poor Barney strung up in the Christmas fairy lights, half strangled and freezing in the bitter cold. Billy hurriedly cut down the dog and made sure he was all right. But meanwhile his mind was racing. Who could have done this? And why? Mrs. Deagle. She'd threatened to get even with Barney. It had to be her. But just for one moment, as he brought poor Barney into the warmth, Billy's thoughts flashed to the 5 little Mogwai sleeping so innocently upstairs. "I don't mind you having 1, Billy, but 6, his mother said the following morning. "They'll have to be found homes." "Oh, Mum, they're a rare species. They may be valuable. Pete and I are going to take one to Mr. Hanson, the biology teacher at school, and see what he thinks."
"Okay," said Mr. Peltzer, "but let's not leave it too long. If they multiply when they touch a drop of water, the world could soon be crawling with these things."
Mr. Hanson was alone in the lab when Billy and Pete arrived.
"Let's see this amazing creature, then,"
said the teacher. Whatever Mr. Hanson had been expecting, it certainly wasn't this.
"Extraordinary. Remarkable," he muttered as he examined the Mogwai. "And they are able to multiply very quickly, you say?"
"Yes. Watch." Billy dripped 1 drop of water onto the creature's fur. Sure enough, where the water fell, a blister formed. Then a furry ball popped out and turned into another Mogwai.
"Leave this one with me, will you?" asked Mr. Hanson. "I'd like to carry out a few, tests."
"Okay," said Billy. "But there are 3 rules. You already know about the water one. Also, never expose Mogwai to light, especially daylight. And never feed them after midnight." When Billy got home, he found that the new Mogwai had really settled in. What a mess! His room was in such a state it took him ages to clear up. Gizmo had been having a bad time with the mischievous newcomers and was very glad to see him. Billy was watching television when the 5 Mogwai began whimpering and clamoring for food. "But I fed you an hour ago," the boy said, amazed that the little creatures were able to eat so much. The electric clock read 11:40 p.m. "All right, then. There's just enough time for second helpings." He fed small cold chicken from the fridge. Greedily, the Mogwai ate, all except Gizmo, who sleepily refused the food. The room was unnaturally quiet when Billy woke the following morning. He knew immediately that something was wrong. He glanced at the clock. It still read 11:40 p.m. But that's impossible. He grabbed the clock and shook it. Oh no, the flex. Something had chewed through the cable. Gizmo was making sharp panic noises. And there, on the floor of the bedroom, were 5 large, scaly pods, each one covered in a sticky membrane. Billy shuddered. So I did feed them after midnight, he whispered to himself. Billy, you'll be late for work if you don't get a move on. It was his mother calling from the kitchen. How was she going to take the news of the Mogwai's transformation? Surprisingly, Mrs. Peltzer took Billy's revelation very well. Just get to work. I'll ring you if they develop into anything. Billy had a phone call at the bank. It was Mr. Hanson. Oh, look, that Mogwai managed to get hold of a sandwich I left lying around last night. Now I've got what looks like a cocoon stage. It'll probably break out as something quite different. Billy promised to call round at the school as soon as he finished work.